Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Hamilton panel. We're going to talk all about Hamilton today, which I'm assuming we're all excited about. So we're going to go ahead. Let's have the panelists introduce themselves. Tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe how you got interested or introduced to Hamilton, and or a song that sort of describes you or describes your life right now. Hamilton song, obviously. You want to go first?
Hi, I'm Joe Dorowski, and I remember first encountering Hamilton when I was teaching an English class, and I was trying to explain postmodernism, and a student in the back raised their hand and said, "Have you heard about an upcoming play called Hamilton?" And I had not at that point. And they said, "From everything I hear, I think it's exactly what postmodernism is." And they were right. Now I actually use Hamilton to help my students grasp postmodernism. So that was my first exposure to Hamilton, and I kind of sought it out after hearing that student talk about it. And I very much enjoy this musical.
Do you have a? Oh, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Nicole Giles. I'm an author of the Water So Deep series and the Descendant series. And I was introduced to Hamilton at a writers' conference. There was like a big in-depth discussion happening about it, and somebody who was standing there talking, I was just present. She started to sing the whole beginning, and I was so captivated by the idea of a musical done in rap that was historical. I had to listen to it. So I immediately went home and bought the album and listened to it. And, now I have it memorized and I've seen it and all of that. So I love that. And a song from Hamilton that describes my life.
Mm-hmm.
The Eye of a Hurricane.
Nice.
That's 2020 for pretty much everyone, right?
Or The World Turned Upside Down. That one also fits.
The World Turned Upside Down. That's a good one.
Too. Yeah.
Okay, Cindy, do you want to go?
Yeah. I'm Cindy, obviously. It says my name on the screen. I had several people try and introduce me to Hamilton, but I was like, I love musical theater, but I don't really like rap. And so I pushed it off for a while, and it was well after the Tonys even. I was like, okay, if I'm going to listen to this, I want a long, uninterrupted stretch of time by myself so that people weren't like watching me listen to it so they could see my reactions. And then I drove, I was driving to my aunt and uncle's house in Wyoming, and it was the perfect amount of time to listen to the soundtrack, and it just floored me. I think I'm fortunate. None of the songs from Hamilton really describe my life. I do have a special affection for Guns and Ships because I was at a work party and this shy little marketing coordinator from Utah just busted out a rap like it was nobody's business, and it took everyone completely by surprise. So it doesn't describe my life, but it's probably my favorite song from the show.
Right, yeah, that one. And if you can rap that one, that's pretty impressive. If anybody, it's pretty fast, right? Yep. All right, so I'm September C. Fox. I'm the moderator tonight. I'm a freelance editor, mainly for science fiction and fantasy. And I also run a writing tip blog. You can find it at writebetterwithaneditor.com. So the way I got into Hamilton was, it's kind of funny because nobody like in my circle, like in my life, was like really into it. But I kept hearing people talk about it, like seeing people talk about it online. And I also went to a writing conference and was hearing people talk about it. And it also took me a while to get into because I also do not really like rap. So it actually took me it was the third attempt that I finally sat down and was like, okay, I'm going to listen to this from beginning to end, all the way through. And by the end, I'm like crying, and I'm like, I never thought I'd be crying about the Secretary of the Treasury, So had a pretty big impact on me, and I understood why everybody was so big about it. Anyway, so we have obviously some questions tonight. So one of the big things that's happened with Hamilton is that we now have a recording of it on Disney Plus, which is like a big deal because you don't have to spend $500 for a ticket, let alone traveling to go see it. And so everybody has access to that if you want to pay the $7, right? So the first thing I kind of want to talk about is just the recording itself. So, like, what did you think of it? What was your experience like with it? And also, was there one element that was surprising to you or that you just really enjoyed about watching this recording of it? Anyone want to go first?
I can jump in.
Okay, cool. Joe.
While watching it, I was struck with the idea that I love that this performance with the original cast is preserved on film, but also I kind of felt like I was not experiencing Hamilton in its best format, where like seeing it on stage with all the energy of a live audience. I think that's what this was designed to be, and then to see it on a screen, it's going to be the eventual film version is probably going to be a better adaptation than a filmed Broadway performance. But it's also been so hard to get access, as you said, because of cost. It was so prohibitive, the limitations of getting people in to see a live performance. I'm so glad that this exists out there, but there was always kind of at the back of my mind was like, this isn't actually the best version of Hamilton, I think, to experience. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to have it on in the background very regularly. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy that it's there. And then if you're familiar with the soundtrack, I think having the visuals really does transform some parts where like the bullet at the end and some of the dance numbers that they're able to do with the spinning floor really make it a different experience than just listening to the soundtrack is.
Yeah. When I watched it on Disney Plus, I was with a group of people, and that kind of brought some of the energy of a live audience. I really appreciated being able to see close-ups, because as much as I love musical theater, unless you're in the first 5 or 6 rows, you don't get to see like the intensity of people's faces, and especially Leslie Odom Jr. as Aaron Burr. Oh my stars and hearts. His face, I thought it was going to explode because he was just so intense in the best possible way. But that being said, I would give my left leg to see it on stage in New York, because it's just better.
Yeah. So I have the broadcast because I do see it live on stage in New York, and I don't want to ruin that experience. I feel like, I feel like that could really mess up my whole vision of Hamilton itself. But I really do want to watch the broadcast. I haven't had access to it yet, but I'm really interested in it. So, but yeah, live on stage is a whole different experience than anything on TV ever.
Yeah. I also could appreciate Philippa Sue's performance more. You just don't get how incredible she is as Eliza from the original cast album. As incredible as that is, you just don't get how amazing she was unless you're watching her.
Yeah, that was really good. I was going to bring up kind of what you touched on, Cindy, about Burr. And I've seen it live, but I didn't notice when I saw it live. I don't know, there's a lot to take in, right? Burr really does smile so much through that whole thing. And then there's that moment where Hamilton doesn't endorse him, and it just kind of turns wooden, and then it just disappears, and you're like, oh yeah, I felt that. And I gotta say, Daveed Diggs, just I could watch him walk around the stage as Thomas Jefferson for an hour, because it's just that entertaining to me. I loved his performance. But yeah, for me, it was kind of a fun experience because my sister and her husband and kids were all really into it, and they came down for 4th of July. And their kids hadn't seen the play, so we all sat down and watched it, and it was really fun. So that was kind of cool, and I liked that experience. But yeah, like Joe talked about, I do feel like, this was made for the stage, so I definitely I want to see it live again at some point. But yeah.
I will say having closed captions as an option is very useful for some of the very fast rap portions.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. All right, so prior to Hamilton, at least from my experience, hold on, we got a question. Lisa Marshall Haskell, did people learn new things from seeing it close up on Disney? For example, had not heard about the character of the Bullet until it came to Disney, even though I did see it live. You guys feel like you noticed new things seeing it up close? I will say I have a friend who had to listen to the album like a gazillion times, and then he saw the live version. He hadn't seen the visuals, and he said he didn't think it was going to affect him that much because he'd heard the album so much. But seeing the visuals and all those kind of more detailed things had a really big impact on him. So I think for some people, yeah, it has had a big impact. Anyone else want to add to that idea?
I can.
Okay.
For me, like listening to the cast album, you don't realize how funny the show is, like the blocking of it, particularly during Your Obedient Servant, when Burr writes one page that's passed elegantly to Hamilton, and then Hamilton writes, and it's page and page and page, and just a bunch of stuff like that. I didn't realize how funny the show was until you get that visual aspect of it.
Yeah, that's true.
I agree with that. I feel like the visual of when Hamilton's son is killed, when he dies, the visual of their grief and everything even has a much bigger impact than just listening to it.
Yeah. All right, so prior to Hamilton, at least from my experience, no one would have seriously thought of putting a story about the founding fathers to rap and hip hop. In fact, I don't know if you guys have seen this video, but you can go online and there's a video of Miranda, like when he was starting to work on it. He didn't know it was going to be a musical yet. He was invited to a poetry night at the White House, and he ends up singing what becomes the first song of Hamilton. And it's really interesting to watch that because like everybody laughs at him, including the president and the first lady. So, I mean, I got to give it to him that he really stuck with it and he kept working on it. But anyway, so a lot of people kind of laughed at him for this idea of founding fathers with rap and hip hop. What were kind of your first thoughts and experiences with this idea? We've kind of touched that on a little bit, but like, how did Miranda pull this off, and why does this work for so many people? Why was this a successful combination?
I don't know how he pulled it off, because he's got to be kind of some sort of brilliant crazy in order to even have this idea that you could do something like that. But I think that brilliant craziness is exactly why it's so successful. When I heard about it, I was so fascinated by the very idea that was one of the reasons why I chose to listen to it in the first place, because it just was so different and edgy and fascinating to me. It opened up a whole new world as far as I'm concerned in the musical theater industry. That was, yeah, spectacular.
What it actually makes me think a little bit is there's this comic book called Mouse, which is a graphic novel about the Holocaust, and it's told in comic book form with zoomorphized characters. So all these, the author is telling the true story of his parents surviving Auschwitz, but he turns all the Jewish characters into mice and all the Nazis into cats. And like, there's no reason this should work, but it actually becomes a very affecting piece of art that is blending the real life tragedy of the Holocaust with funny animal comics. And you hear that and you think that shouldn't work. And the artist, he was part of this kind of underground comic scene that would do crazy stuff just to make it different and make it new in terms of comic books. And when you hear some of the earlier stuff that he was doing, you're like, well, that doesn't work. But I think you have to have that kind of mindset of just, I'm going to go try this thing that shouldn't work. And sometimes it's not going to work, in order to then later on be able to make something that, you know, it becomes so successful and is going to stand the test of time as a piece of art. And I think Lin-Manuel Miranda, with his like rap improv group that he was working with before he went and made Hamilton, was one of those people who's willing to just kind of say, I'm going to try something new and different, and until I find something that works, because it's so unexpected.
Nation is one of the reasons why it has been, like, I feel like it's so pioneering and successful, is because, like, I mean, there's probably somebody who's thought of that, you know, but he pulled it off, so he knew how to make it work that way. All right, so Miranda, he made an effort to include key female characters in the musical. Were his efforts satisfactory? Were we satisfied? Does this affect how we look back on history? And did he adequately address the female experience of that time period? And I want to talk about the ladies.
Well, I think in Angelica, we see that, and Lin, I call him Lin because we're clearly best friends. He has said that Angelica was the smartest person on the stage. And, you know, when she's singing her correspondence with Alexander, she's giving him like political advice, but she also says it's like, I'm the oldest and the wittiest, and so it's my job to marry wealthy so my sisters are taken care of. It doesn't delve too deeply into that because that's not the protagonist. Angelica's not the protagonist, but it does echo the fact that the founding mothers, as they are sometimes called, had almost as much of an impact on the founding of the United States as the founding fathers did, but because of societal norms, they are overshadowed in those conversations. So that's echoed in Hamilton because it's mentioned, but it doesn't delve super deeply into it. But who hasn't wanted to sing "Burn" as an empowerment song? So he gives the ladies their moments while also reflecting the historical reality of their accomplishments being overshadowed.
I've seen Miranda talk a little bit about 1776, the Broadway musical that's had singing and dancing founding fathers before Hamilton made it so cool. And in that, Abigail Adams is a presence that is reflected very much through letters between John Adams and Abigail, and you see a lot of how much Abigail is an influence on John Adams. Both like the kind of policies he's going to adopt, but also like his willingness to keep pushing and keep driving forward and ensure that, the Declaration of Independence is going to be ratified. And I think when you're telling this historical story that, as has been acknowledged, like because of the nature of the moment, the men were the primary protagonists on the national stage. That is, I think, an elegant way to deal with to avoid the complete absence of women in telling that larger national story, and acknowledge that their influence is very much present and is very much going to be driving these men who are in the end going to be the ones who get their portraits painted and end up in the history books.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. But I also feel like there's a little bit of a modern day touch to it too. I feel like with Eliza's part, especially at the end where she is establishing an orphanage and she's pushing for all of these things that Alexander, her late husband, had been pushing for. She's continuing his work, and he gets all the credit for it, but it's showing the drive of the two of them as a couple, that they were she was part of the reason that he was so successful. And it kind of sort of addresses that without really addressing it, I feel like, because I think that's kind of the case with a lot of the founding fathers, and in our history in general.
And having her have the final word, I think, is really powerful when so much of it is, who lives, who dies, who tells your story. She's the one telling the story there at the end. Mm-hmm. It like repositions her.
Yeah, that ending with her is really powerful. And I mean, I actually didn't know like about the Schuyler sisters till I saw this. And so kind of seeing them in this and in this context, for me, it was pretty powerful, especially watching Eliza's character and everything she goes through and what she's willing to do at the end. And so I liked how he brought in the women that way. But yeah, as was acknowledged, I mean, this was more focused on Alex, obviously. But I like how he kind of played with them as a couple in that way. Okay, so once Hamilton started streaming, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I started seeing a lot of negative articles kind of about it, some criticism. And so being curious, I'd click on them from time to time. And it was interesting because from what I saw, a lot of the criticism it was getting was based on how it was portraying the founding fathers. It was portraying them as too perfect or as heroes, or maybe also that it wasn't addressing slavery in the way that it should have been addressed. And I was just wondering what your guys' response or thoughts and comments are to that, or what you would say to people who may be feeling that way. I just thought it was interesting. You want to go?
I will.
Okay.
Anyone thinking that the founding fathers were being, hero worshipped or deified, what show were they watching? Because all of them are portrayed as complex people who did some amazing things, but were also kind of dirtbags. I mean, for all the good Hamilton did, he cheated on his wife repeatedly and was kind of a jerk to everyone he came across. And even Washington, who in my opinion is the best character in the show, is irritable with everyone all the time. And so I think just because you tell someone's story doesn't mean you're trying to portray them as a hero. It's like these people did amazing, wonderful things, but they're also complex human beings and deeply flawed. And I think there's a decent balance of that. Some of the other issues that have been brought up in criticism of the show are more valid than the founding fathers being portrayed as heroes. Even Jefferson, is showed as an arrogant little person, keeping it G for the kids. Like all of the main characters are shown as having, virtues and failings, and horrible did wonderful things.
I kind of felt the same way when I was seeing that myself. I was like, did you watch the musical? Because I feel like we saw some things that were definitely not perfect, with them. Anyone else want to add their 2 cents?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say on the claim with it not addressing the slavery thing, I feel like, okay, that's kind of a valid point, except that that's not what the story is necessarily about. And because you have to choose which parts of a story to focus on in order to tell an entire fully rounded story, you cannot hit on every single political interest in that story. And the thing is, with when it comes to slavery, that in itself could take over the entire story. And in order to give a more rounded version of Hamilton's life, they had to. I mean, he hit on it enough to point out that he was against slavery and that he fought against it, and that Eliza did as well. But it doesn't really focus on that, and I think that that's important that he didn't do that, because we wouldn't have gotten a more fully rounded view if they had. I mean, because as you said, these people are not nice people. I mean, they were brilliant, and they had a lot to contribute to the founding of our country, but none of these people were perfect, and I don't think they're shown in that light in any way in this show. So yeah.
And I was just going to add that by having the cast be so many actors of color, the times that they do acknowledge slavery and they have lines like "We'll never be free till we end slavery," and it's an actor of color singing that on the stage, that line hits so differently than if it was the historically accurate white actor portraying one of the founding fathers saying that line. So a lot of, I think some of that commentary ends up being implicit because of how they chose to cast it, and also because of the musical traditions that they're drawing on in telling the story. And if you're willing to do a little bit more of that work of engagement instead of just seeing it on a surface level and saying, well, there's no big ballads about the evils of slavery, I think you'll find that there's quite a bit there.
Okay, yeah, you guys pretty much said what I was going to say. I feel like he addressed it the best that he could with the story being about Hamilton, All right, so go ahead.
And to Lynn's credit, he did say the criticism is valid, but I had to cut something. So that's kind of what you were saying, Nicole. Something has to give.
Yep.
Yeah, he can't tell a full story, a fully rounded story, without picking and choosing what you put in a story. Hamilton lived a very full life with a lot of details, a lot of details that you just can't put into 2 hours worth of a rap song. I mean, it's impossible. So the way he addressed it, I think, was so brilliantly done that there's no other. I don't even know what else to say about it. It's just brilliantly done, and he couldn't address it more than that unless he was to make the story all about slavery.
Yeah. Okay. So also kind of along those same lines, one of the things that I find interesting about this story is Miranda really doesn't shy away from things that are maybe uncomfortable moments or subject matter in the musical that, is kind of uncomfortable, whether that's about blackmail, affairs, complicated relationships, or simply sometimes just historical facts. Why do you guys think he included this uncomfortable subject matter? Could he have left more out? Because I feel like some people might have, maybe twisted it a different way. Was he right in doing this? And is it a positive or negative thing to include such things in art and entertainment?
I'll take that one. I feel like it's a positive. I think it's really, really important to show these characters, these human people as human beings, and as human beings, we're flawed. We are all flawed, and I feel like the way he's done this, because he included so many of those unsavory details, I think it gives us a more rounded view of what that time was like, what these people were like, and it reminds us that these people are not actually just the heroes in the history books or whatever that we could portray them as, but they were human, and that human beings were the ones who founded this country. I think that without being human, other people may not be able to feel like they can make a difference, and that's just not true. Human beings are what caused it all. We're the end all be all, I guess.
Yeah, I think in our histories and our portrayals and the stories we tell about the founders, sometimes the pendulum swings between these were demigods striding the earth who were sent by God to establish the greatest nation in history, to swinging all the way back like, oh, they were all just slave holders and they were all evil. And the reality that these were flawed people who did some great accomplishments, was just being said, can actually be inspiring, that there's the frailties of humanity about them, and yet they changed the world history.
Yeah, and I'm thinking particularly the Mariah Reynolds story. That had such a greater impact on Hamilton's life and on the impact he had on the country. I think that's why that one was included. It's not because it was salacious, it was because, I'm going to have the worst idea of all time and publish this letter about how, I had this illicit relationship with this woman, but it was the greater impact on the protagonist. And so I think the best kinds of stories don't shy away from things that serve the ultimate plot, which is what the uncomfortable parts of the Hamilton story do, is they serve the greater plot.
Yeah. Sorry, did you have more? Okay. Well, I just think it's been interesting because, if I bring up some of the more uncomfortable stuff when I'm talking to people, a lot of people don't want to talk about it, I've noticed, and which is fine because obviously it makes us kind of uncomfortable. But I feel like there is kind of a benefit in having that in there. Like you guys kind of talked about, it's like these were human people and it makes them complex. But also I kind of feel like if we're not going to talk about these things, like you brought up Mouse, right? Which is, about Nazis. And so it's like, if we're not able to talk about or acknowledge these uncomfortable things in art, like, what does that say about elsewhere? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's kind of a safe place to address some of these things. And yeah, I agree with what Cindy said, and the idea that, obviously the affair had such a huge impact. You couldn't really cut that out, right? Okay, so let's see. at the climax, Hamilton finally throws away his shot, right? And Burr immediately shoots. So what does this tell us about the characters and story? And why is this a significant moment? Kind of wanted to get into this because he spends, right, this whole time talking about he's never going to throw away his shot. And we kind of see it flipped around. Why is this significant?
I think
Joe?
Also we see Burr's like big number is wait for it, and then this is the time he doesn't wait for it, where he's become too aggressive, and like the lifetime of experience has caused them to invert those initial positions of I'm not throwing away my shot and wait for it, and now one has become a little calmer, a little more reticent to leap into action, and the other has become super aggressive because of just years of frustration and feeling like his opportunities have been pulled away from him, which in acknowledging like all the brilliance of the music and the lyricism that Lin-Manuel Miranda brought to it, that's just excellent story structure. and yes, he's drawing on history, but the way it gets presented and he fits these pieces together creates this very satisfying protagonist-antagonist tragedy that has no real winners in the end.
Yeah, I love that it creates this whole story arc for both of them that kind of just collides all at once. I know, with my big weapon. I feel like it's perfect storytelling, and I say that knowing, because in my opinion this particular piece couldn't have been any more well done any other way. But yeah, I feel like that story arc and the two of them colliding, it is just perfect the way it happens.
Okay, yeah, I think it's interesting. Oh, let's do a question. Okay, Chelsea asks, what song would you choose to introduce someone to Hamilton? Ooh, that's a tough one, right? I've heard a lot of people say Burn, but I actually don't think I would do that one. No, I really like Yorktown, so maybe I would do Yorktown. Anyone else?
It's kind of tough to beat the title song.
Oh.
That's what I was going to say.
I would probably dazzle them with my Guns and Ships rapping skills. And they'd be like, where did you learn to do that? And I was like, here's this gift called Hamilton. But for me, it's really hard to beat the opening song.
That is hard. I actually introduced my husband to it, my ex-husband, with George Washington's song, Right Hand Man.
That one's a great one. Yeah, that's a good intro.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a leadership and kind of a you can't get there yourself kind of a thing that just really spoke to me. And that's one of the reasons that I ended up getting to go see Hamilton live in New York, because I convinced him that way. So yeah, choose the right song for the right person and it might get you there.
True.
One last time, Washington's swan song on stage gives me chills every time. So depending, like, that one would probably be a close second.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I remember a story that's relevant. I was watching it again to get ready for this, and I had a family member come in, and he came in when Philip was dying, and I was like, oh, okay, this person's never seen it, and they're coming in now, okay. But it was the type of, it was a family member who's probably never going to watch it, so I was like, it's fine. So he sits down, and he's like, oh, did this really happen? And I'm like, yeah, Philip died in a duel. And we're watching it, and then it's Quiet Uptown. Well, before that, this person's like, I should sit down and watch this sometime. I'm like, yes. And then It's Quiet Uptown starts playing, and all of a sudden I hear this sniffling, this in the dark, and the song ends, and this person goes, I don't know if I can watch this. And so, I don't know, maybe for this person, I guess it was when Philip was dying. I don't know. But I just thought it was kind of funny, and I was like, no, you need to watch it. It's really good. But of course, that was the part that he walked in on. But I don't know. All right.
I was going to say the opening number
go ahead, Joe.
Hamilton, just because I think the initial question everyone has is like, can you really do rap and hip hop and American history with the Founding Fathers? And that opening number just as a brilliant demonstration that, yes, this is going to work for most of the audience. And now, maybe not everyone, but I think most people see and hear that one and they're like, okay, I get it. I see how this is going to function.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Just checking. Okay, so this musical's obviously been super successful. I just wanted to mention some of the things, right? All right, Disney paid $75 million to get the rights for this. It's won 11 Tony Awards. It's the most nominated musical of all time and has the second most awards won. So my question is, why do you guys think this has been so highly successful? Why is it so satisfying? What is it about this musical that resonates with so many people? What did Miranda do in creating it that made this so powerful?
I think sometimes, in school, learning about the founding fathers can seem a little dry and just like, oh, they lived so long ago. Their stories are somewhat inaccessible, and he used, current musical traditions, R&B and hip hop, and did a little throwback with What Did I Miss, which is one of my favorites. And so he used modern devices to tell stories that had been previously inaccessible, and it made history come alive in a way that hadn't been done before, and it was just such an original concept, and it was executed to perfection.
Yeah, I agree that there's like something almost kind of like an alchemical lightning in a bottle capture of this cast and the choice of music styles and then the subject matter is going to do. But then also, I mean, just returning again to the way the story gets structured, like there's the kind of the Shakespearean tragedy element to this story where you ask like constantly, like, how is he going to make this choice? Like, how does Alexander Hamilton end up dying in a duel after Philip? And all these other things. And the characters become so real and human in like just the hubris and the arrogance and the drive that is all those things that are combined to make them successful is also going to be their downfall. And so I think there's something that resonates in terms of like the grand storytelling tradition, as well as then all those new and unique elements that make it feel special in terms of introducing all these different musical styles to Broadway musicals.
Yeah, I think aside from the brilliance of the writing, it's so identifiable because it makes these people human, and yet they're our founding fathers, and it kind of gives people this ability to say, okay, I've had a lot of trials in my life too. I have, but maybe I could do something that could change the world as well, and it makes it accessible and identifiable for people, and especially I've noticed it's such a big thing with the teen and young adult population, which I love because it kind of gives you that burst of I'm going to do something big with my life for a minute, and that's something that you don't get very often.
Yeah, it has had a big influence on teens and kids too. I've noticed even, my nieces were telling me when they saw it, they're like, we want to learn more about history, but it's so boring at school. Why can it be more like Hamilton? I'm like, oh, do you want to watch Hamilton again? Let's just learn about history that way. Just kidding, obviously. But like what I love about it too, this is a slight tangent, is that I feel like its success has also made people just more interested in history. So even like people are looking up, okay, did Hamilton really write this letter to Angelica, and going through and learning and getting the actual facts, because obviously in a musical, there's going to be a little, it's a story, so you have to leave things out and sometimes twist things around to make a good story. But yeah, so it has had a big influence that way, which has been interesting. But like we've touched on, it's, as a writer and editor, I will say it's extremely well written. Like I could just dissect that thing for like days. And I'm super impressed, even just on a line by line basis. Been very impressed with how it's written. And then I think there's something about that resonates in, this American history of our founding fathers, like we touched on, and seeing them as real complex human beings and combining that with something like more updated. Like I love the idea of, I don't remember his exact words, but he said, it's the story of America told by Americans today. And I think that was such a clever, like pioneering idea. And I feel like I feel like that really kind of unified us in a way that it's like, yeah, this is our story. You know what I mean? So I think that's maybe one of the reasons why it's been successful. But obviously the music's amazing too. But yeah. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Lisa says, what does everyone think of the Hamilton mixtape? Have you guys listened to that? It's like, has like Usher and like other artists doing kind of a mix on Hamilton songs. No?
I haven't listened to them. It makes me.
Well, I've listened to them. Like at the end of the recording, like the Disney recording, they're playing one of them like during the credits. That's one of the songs. I like that one, and I also like Write My Way Out, I think is what it's called. Those are the two that kind of connect more with me that I like out of those. But yeah, it's good. If you guys should listen to it. Anyone else?
Next time I have a solo road trip to Wyoming.
Okay, yeah, it's fun because like you get to hear different twists on ideas and little renditions of things. So I definitely
Is Weird Al's included in that? I do enjoy Weird Al's medley of the entire,
which was probably the
Weird
greatest honor of
medley of all of Hamilton, which is very much worth listening to,
and probably like the greatest thing in Lynn's life.
Probably.
Oh, there's a video of Lin-Manuel Miranda listening to it for the first time, and he just looks like a tickled, like he's just so ecstatic to be hearing Weird Al doing a version of his music.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
I have not heard that, but I did see the oh my gosh, the taxi, what is it? The taxi karaoke version where
carpool karaoke?
Yes, where they did the Guns and Ships. I have to say, pretty brilliant.
Yeah. Have you guys listened to the deleted songs? Because like you can find them online. Just if anyone who's watching this has not looked up the deleted songs, you definitely should, because some of those things are amazing. Like I love Angelica has another one. They kind of cut it down and put it into the Reynolds pamphlet, but she has one called Congratulations. And I just think it's great. And also, like, for me as a writer and editor, like, you can find earlier alternate versions of some of the ones that are in the musical. And it's really interesting to see, like, the changes Miranda made and, like, the effect that had in the story. Like, let's see, One Last Time. I think there's an earlier version called One Last Ride, which was about, like, when, you know, they were dealing with the alcohol thing. And that one's kind of funny, but One Last Time is kind of a little more sad, you know, but it's really interesting to go through and look through those. Have you guys listened to those? No.
I have some of them, and then also in the book that they put out, they track some of the changes. There's a book about the making of Hamilton, and in there they acknowledge like some of the struggles that they had trying to get something just right, where like what they had was probably good enough, but they wanted to get it really right, and it takes a lot of work and revision.
Yeah. One of the things, too, that's interesting, there actually is a cabinet battle about slavery that I think is worth listening to, because since that's a topic that gets brought up. All right. So real quick, we kind of talked about the impact it's had on society and the world, but was there something in this musical that had an impact on you on a personal level that was like a takeaway that you took from this musical?
Not direct, and I was actually thinking of this a minute ago, not directly, but once I listened to the cast album, I started looking up on YouTube every interview with Lin I could find, and just, you know, went super deep on the fangirling. And I realized he has no chill. He's such a spaz, but the world loves him for that. They embrace him because he knows he has no chill. And so often, you know, we're, you know, calm down, or, you know, you might scare people with your enthusiasm or things like that. But it was watching all those interviews, and I was like, why would I do that? Like, if I just own that about myself, the right people will stick around. And so legitimately, because of that, Lin-Manuel Miranda is one of my heroes, because he owns the fact that he's a spaz and the world loves him for it.
Yeah. I'll say for me, learning about Eliza Hamilton and her story had a bigger impact on me than I could have imagined. Just the idea of seeing everything she went through, being married to Hamilton and him cheating on her and Philip dying and all that stuff, and then seeing that she ultimately forgives him for it, like, I'm like, geez, I need to, like, be a lot more tolerant and forgiving of the loved ones in my life. And, like, just that, I feel like sometimes, like, I'm like, okay, you know what? If Eliza can forgive Hamilton, I can get through this, you know?
One thing for me that I don't know why it stuck out, but when I'm dealing with deadlines and trying to, like, get a writing project done, or you know, and I'm feeling overwhelmed, I will hear Leslie Odom Jr. singing "Hamilton Wrote the Other 51," and it just goes through my head like, okay, it can be done. It can be done. Whatever it is that's in front of me. Yep.
Yeah, for me, it was also Eliza's story, and knowing that her influence was a big deal to the United States and to the future of our country. It seems like just being married to him wasn't. She didn't get nearly the credit that she should have, but she made her impact on the world as well, whether she gets the credit or not. It was a good thing for me to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
September, what is going on?
Hi, just talking about Hamilton.
What is up, FanX family? It's your boy Ro coming at you. I've been in the background listening to all things Hamilton. I appreciate each and every single one of you because I am a Hamilton newbie. I knew that it was a big thing. I knew what it was about, but I waited until it came out on a streaming service to go ahead and take a look at it. And if you guys don't know at home, we have a Utah tie-in. Thane Jasperson is one of the actors that is on the show. Super amazing, super talented. Thane, if you get a chance to look at this, we love you and appreciate you. You're killing it, crushing it, and super awesome. I went ahead and crashed your party, September, because I have some other questions that I want to go ahead and get to that have been bugging me. Hey, well, first of all, you know, I was trying to go ahead and find the perfect filter to go ahead and match this, but I'm
founding father.
Yeah, Joe. Why does it work? Why does it work with this new audience? Because, I mean, we talked about it before. September, you did an awesome job, but it's history. It's history, founding fathers, all that stuff. What does this version of Hamilton work on such a massive level?
I think Lin-Manuel Miranda tapped into the fact that history doesn't have to be boring. I mean, this is sex and violence all over the place in the founding of our nation. And then he's going to add it with the energy and the beats of hip hop and rap, and then throw in other, like has been acknowledged, like lots of other musical traditions get brought in as well. Somehow it all works. And he's like reminding people that, like, this nation, it's very dry sometimes in the presentation, the founding of the nation. But these were real people who were living incredible lives. And I think it just comes alive for audiences in the way that he was able to capture it.
I love it. I love it. Cindy, sorry. For you specifically, which one's your favorite song? This musical cannot survive without which song?
All of them. It's really hard to pick because there was so much information there that, you know, they had to cut things down and cut things down. But, oh shoot, it's really, I can't pick one. Like, that sounds like such a cop-out, but I'm going through all, like, the track list in my mind, and you take any of them out and something crucial of the story is left out, like an essential aspect of either Hamilton's character or what's going on in the country at large.
And is that part of it where it's like a symbiotic relationship where they all kind of like need each other to go ahead and survive within the big piece?
Yeah, and to that effect, I would almost say the story of tonight, because it's all these people, coming together in brotherhood saying, okay, we all have these brilliant ideas. Let's combine them and make the sum greater than the whole of its, or the whole greater than the sum of its parts. And so that might be the underlying concept between all of them, and maybe Hamilton's great failing that he wanted to do it all by himself, but he never could. So the story of tonight is probably the most essential to the story as a whole.
Gotcha. And Miss Nicole, for you, you talked about something before we went ahead and started the panel. If I have somebody in my life that for whatever reason will not watch Hamilton, how do we go ahead and like kind of ease them into it? How do we go ahead and get somebody to watch Hamilton with us?
That is a good question. I've got a few people that I'm still working on, but for me, I just played it nonstop at my house until everyone else had it memorized too, and I was just like, look, if you want to enjoy what you're hearing anyway, just you might as well listen or watch all the way through. And I think that's probably the best way to do it, is to just ease them in. But yeah, like I said earlier, I introduced my ex-husband to it with George Washington's right-hand man, just because it was a thing that he could identify with. I picked the song that reminded me the most of him in particular, and the other people, my kids and stuff, they all have a different level and a different song that I would start them out with. But yeah, I think they have to listen to it all the way through. That's just all there is to it.
Gotcha. And Miss September, for you, I'm going to put you in the hot seat.
Uh-oh.
One thing you have to change about Hamilton to make it better. What is it?
Oh my dear. Ooh, how am I have to make it better? Oh, I know.
There you go.
It needs to be longer. Needs to be longer.
Oh, I love it. There's an episode on The Office where like Michael Scott's about to go into an interview. He's like, ask me what my weaknesses are. My weaknesses are I care too much. I put work before home, all this other stuff, right? You chose the right road. September, I'm wondering, why do you love this musical so much? I mean, enough to be a moderator on a panel, like out of everything that you can do, why does this one stick out to you?
The story and the way that it's all connected, and the fact that this is part of our history, I think, and just so many of the things that we talked about, even the musical aspect, which again, I do not like rap, but apparently I would like rap if it's about the founding fathers. I don't know. But I think a combination of those things, it really had a powerful impact on me. And I think just if you were to watch it or listen to it from beginning to end, that story, in writing, we call it like an arc, the way the story develops, it's so well written, and the way he brings back different lines that have been brought up earlier, but in a different context. And that has like kind of a powerful, it gives it kind of more emotional power and like resonance.
Gotcha.
But I just feel like all those things combined, it has a really powerful emotional impact on people. Like even my family member who came in and just sat for one or two songs, I mean, it made that person tear up. So I just think it's really well written. And I think because it's part of something that was real, part of our history too, I feel like it hits a little deeper perhaps. Right.
There's so many reasons why, like I see people just flocking to this, whether they had the opportunity to catch it live while we could, or just on a streaming service, and now wanting to go ahead and see it in its magic and glory, right, in person. But I think we feel, at least I feel super fortunate that I was being able to. I didn't have to travel all the way to Broadway to go ahead and have it, be a chance to be an audience member into that. But I love and appreciate all of you guys. Yeah, from the FanX family, thank you so much for being a part of this. September, you are the moderator. Do you have any last words? Do you want to go ahead and ask your panelists last words on this topic? Anything else that
I don't have any in particular. Just it's a great musical. Love it. Listen to it. Watch it. Anybody else want to add any last words or things they didn't get to talk about they wanted to? No, everybody's satisfied.
This is why it's so.
There are other great musicals besides Hamilton. I will say that. It is wonderful. But the world of musical theater is so rich, and now that you have this gateway show, go check out some of the classics.
It's like a gateway to history and musical and rap and just kidding.
Check out some of the classics like High School Musical, right? I might be a little far.
Yeah.
I was thinking more like Carousel and South Pacific. Some of the Rogers, like Hamilton is in the Richard Rogers Theater. Go check out some of the stuff that Richard Rogers wrote.
No, it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing because once we can go ahead and put something in a different type of vessel, all of a sudden we're like, wait, I might really be into this, and so something something we can all go ahead and appreciate. You guys are amazing and incredible. Hey, all you viewers, if you're watching live or even after this is already done, hey, remember, you can always go ahead and comment. One of the panelists will get to you, the moderator will get to you, or somebody else from the FanX family will go ahead and get to you. But let's start up the discussion. Do you like Hamilton? Comment below. Do you say pass on Hamilton? How dare you? Go ahead and comment below. If you think High School Musical is better than Hamilton, go ahead and drop that like right there. Or if you don't, maybe Chitty Chitty Bang Bang's your thing. I don't know. Or is there another piece of historical relevance that you would want to go ahead and see this creator take on and create into a musical? What would that be? Let us know, each and everything. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys. September, Miss Nicole, Cindy, Joe, we appreciate your time and energy. You guys are so fantastic. Last words, September, go. Last words.
Wait for it. It's coming. Just kidding. I don't have last words. Just thanks for everybody for coming. Thanks for enjoying our panel. Thank you to the panelists. You guys are awesome. What?
Do you have a blog? Where can people find you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I mentioned it at the starting, but you can find my stuff. You can find it with my name, septembercfox.com. Or if you can't remember that, you can go to writebetterwithaneditor.com. I'm also on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, all that jazz. If you want to come find me, that's cool.
Awesome. What about you, Nicole?
Same thing. You can Google my name, or it's NicoleGiles.com or .net, or Facebook, Twitter, all the Instagram, all the places, all the things. All the things, yeah.
That's awesome. Joe, what about you?
I host the Protagonist Podcast, where each week we talk about a great character and a great story. So if you enjoy hearing me talk about, or my guests talk about great characters, that's a place where you could download, at this point, 300 episodes of us talking about great characters and great stories.
That's awesome. And Cindy?
I'm just a fan of things. I'm on Instagram, but it's just my regular life. I don't really post fan things, but if you like pretty hiking pictures,
she has some good pretty hiking pictures.
I'm your girl, but
I love it.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I can be found at FanX every year on various panels.
Great. Hey, and if you want to go ahead and join us, remember that 2021 event is happening. So make sure you go to our website, check it out. Go ahead and hop on the special promo we have for the next event's tickets. You're not going to want to go ahead and miss out. And while you're there, you can also visit our merch shop. Go ahead and look official with some FanX gear. We even have masks, hand sanitizers, all the stuff to make sure you look amazing, okay? While you're being safe and following all your rules and regulations. Yeah. So for all things virtual panel, including Hamilton and stuff like that, make sure you follow us. Make sure you follow the moderator, Miss September, and everybody here on the panel. We'll go ahead and see you guys next time. Later. Bye, guys.